Concerns around antisocial behaviour and public safety in Ennis, which are back in focus, with calls for increased Garda resources and new ways for the public to report incidents. A recent proposal to introduce a see it, say it style tech system sparked discussion, alongside concerns that policing accessibility and how best to support communities. To discuss all this, I'm joined on the line by the Clarecastle Fianna Fáil Councillor Tom O'Callaghan and also PJ Ryan, Chair of the Clare Local Community Safety Partnership. And thanks to both of you for being with me on the show this morning. Tom, obviously a councillor and a business owner. From your perspective, how serious is the issue of antisocial behaviour and indeed public safety in Ennis at the moment?
Well, can I just say something I think is important we acknowledge the work of Garda Síochána, and with sincere gratitude. I think that's fundamentally important. Look, as a business owner, and again, this is something that has been brought to me, I suppose, from the local businesses within Ennis town, but I've been in business myself personally for over 27 years. I work extremely closely with Garda Síochána and have a superb relationship. But what we have seen, and in Limerick and in Ennis town and every town, urban and right across our county, there is a significant increase of antisocial behaviour. And the problem we find with all that is how do we control it? How do we report it? And how do we assist? I put a motion down because I did a bit of research and I saw where there are other ways of reporting incidents, and say it is one of those. And it is already very successful in the UK. There is a pilot scheme ongoing at the moment in Drogheda and in Tralee. But what has resulted from that has been a 25% decline in antisocial behaviour. Now, when I put the motion forward, I was actually directing it at the Minister for Justice, but I was thrilled to see a reply from our own new chair, which is PJ. Delighted to see PJ in that position, and also from John Ryan, our superintendent. But the one area that I find very close to my heart is that they're under-resourced, and this needs to be addressed. And we have to put the priority people as number one.
And we'll get to the issue of resourcing in just a moment, PJ, but from your own experience, maybe what you're hearing anecdotally about Ennis, and even an area more familiar to you, 6 Mile Bridge, in both locations, do you believe there's an issue with antisocial behaviour?
Good morning, Alan. Good morning, Tom, and good morning to your listeners. Antisocial behaviour, I suppose it is coming to the fore quite a lot in recent times, and there has been an awful lot of talk about it. I've followed up on what has happened in a lot of rural areas, and there definitely are problems around it. There was a suggestion at our last Clare Local Safety Partnership meeting about see something, say something. It was something that was brought up, and we looked into it, and I found out that in Longford there was a plan put forward there to see if it would work, but by what I could gather, the public take up on it was poor, and also there was a challenge around resources. So, it's down to the Gardaí at the moment, and the feedback that I'm getting is, that Gardaí say that they're not getting enough reports to the 999 and the 112 calls. It is important that people report things that happen in or around their estates or in or around their area. But there seems to be a little bit of a resistance to doing that. Normally people associated the 999 calls and the 112 calls with emergencies, but it seems that now at the moment the Garda are saying that everybody should use those to report incidents in their area.
Okay, Tom, we'll get to, you mentioned earlier on that the pilots of See It, Say It seem to be quite effective. The example PJ used there, maybe in that instance less so. What, just for listeners not familiar with it, what would a See It, Say It model look like in practice for Ennis? And also, do you have concerns that if it was implemented, that there may be a lack of take-up or engagement with it, like there is, as PJ alluded to, with 999 and 112?
Yeah, PJ is actually a great point there. People don't realise that 999 and 112 are actually numbers that people need to use. They thought that was just for an emergency. That's simply not the case. What this is, and again, to reiterate, what I'm asking for is extra resources. And again, PJ has highlighted under-resourced. If we don't address that now, last Saturday morning, I actually sat down with the Minister for Justice, Jim O'Callaghan, and I said, there's a big issue that we have. If you look at, for example, example, now in Ennis alone, and I think this is important we realise, in 2006 there was 12,954 Gardaí nationally. In 2026 that number now is 12,289. So if we just say locally, so we just say to Ennis Garda numbers, in 2007 we had 200 Gardaí. In 2025 that is now 110. That's nearly half, Alan, and the population has increased. That's a fundamental problem and very difficult for great people like John Ryan to manage because, there's only so much they can do. What this system is, effectively, it allows the public, it's totally designed where it's anonymous text line and that they can inform if there's any public intoxication, vandalism or drug use. And it's not for, say, immediate danger. And what it has done, and effectively in Tralee, it has reduced antisocial by 25%. And that's quite significant. So unless the government is prepared, and again coming back to this is an overall approach, as I've rightly said, 665 less Gardaí nationally, 90 less in County Clare, and you have to keep this in mind. We have 110 Gardaí, fantastic people. So at any one time, I work it out myself, probably 21 are on duty, but they have to cover areas like Crusheen, Tulla, Lissycasey, Shannon, Ina, as well as Ennis. So they're at their ends, where they can, get to. So unless we look at now, the positive that has come back to me from the Minister of Justice, and he's given this commitment that government policy is visibility of Gardaí. And what we have achieved, and again I'm going to ask people in our own county, now we have done this in Limerick, where we asked the public and businesses to report crimes. That has resulted, say in Limerick for example, we've got an extra 12 Gardaí. And I can assure you, Alan, in my business alone and other business here, it has transformed our area in the last 8 weeks. That has to happen in our town, in our county.
Yeah, and PJ, Tom mentioned there, Garda talked about the importance, or the Minister of Justice talked about the importance of visibility in policing, but Garda have raised concerns that a system like See It, Say It might actually draw resources away from visible policing given where resources are at the moment. How significant is that risk?
I suppose it is significant, but at the end of the day, we need more Gardaí on the streets, and then more resources need to be put into the Gardaí. A Garda's job is not as attractive as it used to be years ago. The majority of younger people now can get way more beneficial jobs, in industry and all that. If you take our area, the amount of people who are employed in Shannon Airport and industrial estate inside in Raheen, younger people can get way better jobs there and way better paid jobs than being members of the Gardaí. So at the end of the day, the Minister needs to step up and the government needs to step up, and, create conditions and better pay for Gardaí to attract young people into that position. And it's very essential for all rural areas, especially. We mentioned there now, again, to go back to the see something, say something, that works in certain areas, but a lot of areas don't have good enough broadband, and also a lot of rural people are not into texting and into that kind of thing, so that boils down again, that we need Gardaí on the beat and in and around the area. If you take it here, the village where I have my business here in Six Mile Bridge, at one stage back in 2016, we had about 2,000 of a population here. Now we have upwards of 6,000 of a population. At that stage in 2016, we had 5 guards here. We have no guards here virtually any day now because they're deployed to Shannon Airport because of a shortage of Gardaí in the area. And all the other villages, Newmarket and Fergus in the very same way, Arnold Crusher Party in the very same way. All the Gardaí being taken out of the area, gone into the big urban areas. There needs to be serious changes if we're going to combat crime.
Tom, that's a bigger problem, calling for additional resources in order to make something like See It, Say It work as effectively as possible. But as Peter pointed out, there are other industries, other sectors, other career paths that are just proven to be more attractive for a host of reasons, rather than becoming a member of An Garda Síochána. That's a big one for them to tackle.
Yeah, look, PJ is correct in that, and that needs to be addressed. We need to have an efficient Garda presence on the ground. I've said in our own town, I am extremely concerned about a Conn Street closed at night. The Gardaí are concerned also, because you see, reality is until you have the visibility of Gardaí on the street, we're not safe. We need to have access at all times. I very much support pedestrianising the street. I've said that before, but I do believe we're putting the cart before the horse. This is a bigger picture. And again, you see, PJ is talking very rightly so from even being a business person himself. He knows himself what the effect of his crime can be on a business, but also on the safety of our staff that are working in all these sites. Now, I welcome even the body cams that are coming in, but I would say this, and I think, Alan, I'd like this message got across as well. I'm fighting very hard to get CCTV in every area all over the county, as much as our colleagues are, but we're being restrained due to the data protection. And again, I brought this up with the Minister. This has to be addressed. But what I would say to everyone is, I would ask, please consider getting those doorbell cameras in every property, because that is your property, that's your data. And that data, when given to Gardaí, can be of significance in catching these people that are causing the anti-crime. Because I'm getting phone calls and seeing these pictures of gangs going around at 4 o'clock at night, checking doors of homes, checking cars. And, that's something people need to be conscious of, to have their doors locked. But the end result of all this, if we don't collectively address this, if we don't get our Gardaí numbers up to 15,000 minimum, if we don't have any system that can be of assistance that has to be funded by government to work in tandem with Gardaí, and let's stop all this administration work and get them back on the ground where they were initially for. But I will say this, and I think it's important. In Limerick City, if anyone drives into Limerick right now, they will see visible guards in every street. It has significantly reduced antisocial behaviour. That has to happen in our county.
PJ, you mentioned in a reply to Tom's motion that Clare Local Community Safety Partnership is looking at raising public awareness of the need to properly report crime. What would that involve, and what kind of impact do you hope it'll have?
Well, at the moment, Clare Local Safety Partnership, we're doing a survey to try and engage with people as to what they want, but part of our job now is, as you said there, to create awareness, and that in the first instance that has to do with the 999 calls and the 112 calls. We need to convince people, that they use it. I suppose at the end of the day, community has a part to play within their own community, and that's where that comes in. There's all types of incidents they need to report it, and it's on record. If they make a 999 call, there's no fear. The person at the end of the line will take their call, they'll report it to the Garda, and the same with the 112. That's very, very important. And we need to get that message out there. And from our last meeting on now, and from the report we got from Superintendent John Ryan, that is our message. Get everybody aware that there is no problem dialing 999 or 112, and the message will be taken, and it will be recorded, and it will be attended to by the Garda.
OK, we do have to leave that one there for the moment, but gents, my thanks to both of you for chatting about this issue with us on the show. That's PJ Ryan, Chair of the Clare Local Community Safety Partnership, and before him the Clarecastle Fianna Fáil Councillor Tom O'Callaghan.